Howdy, howdy. We are live on a Friday night with a very special edition of the Tex-Trek podcast. And it seems like we already have a lot of people in the live audience who showed up to celebrate our 300th show. So it's a big deal. And also, there we go. Got like a big 300 graphics. So
I spent a lot of money on this. Yeah, computer graphics.
I don't know.
Yeah,
like
amazing CGI graphics.
Yeah, there's a 3D effect to it that I just wish our audio people could see.
Oh.
But
they never hear this part, like before we say the "I'm Fathery, I'm Dave, I'm Joel." Like this part always gets chopped off.
They're totally missing out.
Yeah, they don't know about any of this. But speaking of that, we can go ahead and get the show started.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Fathery.
This is Dave.
And I'm Joel.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 300th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight we are celebrating our big milestone 300th podcast episode. I'm really looking forward to this. We have Joel here with Dave and I, who is going to go on a walk down memory lane with us as Dave and I talk about the history and evolution of our show. And then in a bit, we'll have my partner Taylor come on the show and guest and talk a little bit about some of the content we've been making on hashtag Taylor's Star Trek Mission, where I am showing her all of Star Trek for the first time in release order. And that's been a lot of fun. I think people are going to like hearing more from her in a moment. And we are also at a bittersweet formality celebrating the work that Dave has contributed to the podcast and also saying goodbye. He will be leaving the show. This is his final voyage as this is like Spock talking to Valeris in Star Trek 6. This is his final voyage as a regular co-host on the Tex-Trek podcast.
I thought he would be sailing into the west of the Austin Metro. So,
is this going to be a Lord of the Rings ending here? If this is going to be a long show.
This is going to be a long show.
We don't want you to diminish, Dave. You should sail into the west.
But no, like Spock, I will appear for the occasional episode of Next Gen, or a movie, or what have you. So I am here tonight to bid fond farewell. I'm here with my refrigerator behind me once again.
Who we love more than you. It's sad but true. It's an old friend.
My most powerful form is with my refrigerator behind me. But
it's a classic look.
Although I have enjoyed for the last many months trying to pull something from every episode or thematic that we've been doing. Joanne Robinson says the kitchen is back, and I should say I'm still not there. It's just a screen cap. But
he's in an undisclosed location. But
that's right.
He's at his brother's house.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I've ruined it. All the OPSEC for nothing.
I've ruined the mystery.
But yes. So yeah, let's do this thing, Father. Let's have a 300th episode.
Well, let's do a little bit of housekeeping first. I do need to give a huge thank you and shout out to the wonderful Tex-Trek Patreon supporters. The only reason we were able to make it to 300 episodes. But Thank you tremendously, Starfleet Sohel, Cake's Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Dog, Geek Filter, Quarks Bar, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, Joel Vallis, Ben Ginium, Arthur Lamoureux, and our anonymous supporters. We are going to be celebrating in a couple of weeks on September 21st. This was rescheduled. I'd previously announced September 14th, but we're doing a Patreon watch party September 21st. Because we are celebrating the month of Star Trek Day and the anniversary of the entire franchise, we will be watching the episode that got the entire damn thing started, The Man Trap, back on September 8th, 1966. Actually, September 6th up in Canada is, I guess, like the real Star Trek Day. So that's the day of recording right now. We're recording Tex-Trek number 300 on Canadian Star Trek Day.
This is Maple Trek Day, and then, yeah.
There you go. But yeah, those watch parties are a lot of fun. I encourage people to join the Patreon if you can. You can come in as little as $2 a month, and that'll get into the watch parties. If you can afford to be more generous, there's additional perks as well. But the watch parties are always a ton of fun. It's a great crowd that shows up for those.
You know, Father, he's moving it to the 21st, I think, means that it'll now be past my vacation I'm about to go on, so I will be able to join y'all.
So Dave will be covered in salt from the beach, ready to feed the vampire.
Ready to be licked.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. So, yeah, it's gonna be a crazy time, but it'll be fun. Join the Tex-Trek Patreon and come to our watch parties. There's a little bit
you know what? By the way, people should bring margaritas, right? We should have salted margaritas.
Hey, salt and margaritas, that goes together.
Yeah.
So
you can put salt in beer. Pickle juice, it's a thing. You put pickle juice in beer.
Or like a lot of Mexican beers, you dress with salt. That's fairly common.
Yeah. Get some Modelo and come on down.
But there's a little bit of unfortunate news, sad news, the passing of James Darren, who played Vic Fontaine on Deep Space Nine, so should acknowledge that.
Yeah. I was telling people about the character a little bit at work, people who didn't know about it. And I was like, oh yeah, well, kind of like instead of having a counselor, they had this cool kind of like jazz club owner kind of guy who would say, hey, why the long face, Pally? And I'm like, well, yeah, now this is why we have a long face, because we lost you, man. It's sad.
Yeah, there's no one to like cheer us up and sing like the appropriate song at the end of the episode, I guess. But
Fathery, I know I told you this when in the audience when we talked about DS9. I did not expect to like Vic Fontaine. I thought that character was gonna be a kind of a hokey, forced thing on the show where, what little I knew, I was like, oh, this is gonna be so cheesy. Like, less and less I thought that as the show went along. Obviously, they have a great track record. And then it ended up being so good, right? There's so many really great episodes that zero in on him or feature him. And he was like a true crooner back in the days with the Rat Pack and everything, right? Who, like, toured with them, if I'm not mistaken?
I don't think he toured with them, but I think he knew them. He had like met them.
Them.
He was at the scene, but yeah, he was an up and comer in show business like early on. Like he was doing movies in the 50s. I think he's in like, I've never seen the Gidget movie, but he's in that. And
I used to watch this show, but I don't know if he was on this show. And I was very little, but he was in the movies, which were much bigger.
Yeah.
Who was in Gidget? Was that Sally Field or something?
Yeah, she was Gidget.
Okay, I don't really know much about it.
It was on Nick at Night or something when I was little.
Yeah.
And then
I
was bored and watched it. But he played Moondoggy, who apparently was a surfer.
Oh, wild. That is crazy. But yeah, like just as a concept, the kind of everybody's buddy counselor that he was so great, and he did such an amazing job embodying that. Always looked like the coolest dude in the room, but had he had a big heart. So it's sad, but I also remember him fondly. So what better legacy can you ask for?
Well, I do need to say thank you to Chris Garris and the live audience for the very generous $50 super chat. Thank you so much, Chris.
Wow.
Chris says, I joined Patreon 30 minutes. I assume that was 30 minutes ago. Here, a super chat for you guys. Chris, we really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
How cool is that? Yeah. Welcome aboard.
21
Now, well-
phaser salute. So
Yeah.
But Joel, I said last week it was
Yes.
the first time you had appeared on the podcast. You had been a frequent member in the live chat and had appeared on some of the other streams we had done. But
the
you've now
reaction
been
ones.
you've now been on the Tex-Trek podcast when we were talking about some X-Men comics a couple weeks
Yes.
ago. I do want to ask you just a little bit more about just tell us more about your relationship with Star Trek and how you came to become a fan of Star Trek and how you discovered our podcast, Tex-Trek.
Okay, so we'll do Star Trek first. My dad, he was a big sci-fi nut. The original series covered the end of high school and beginning of 1 year of college, I think, for him. So he watched all of them. He said he wouldn't go on dates if there was Star Trek night. He had to wait. So it was probably when it moved to Fridays that was inconvenient, third season. But so he was super into Star Trek. And then, so I don't remember Star Trek when I was really little, but I must have watched it. Because when I was really little, I was Star Wars, because that was the thing, and Battlestar and Buck Rogers. But I think they took me to all the movies, because I do remember seeing Star Trek 3. And I was very, very upset when the Enterprise died. I must have seen Star Trek 2 because I did have a Wrath of Khan Viewmaster with the eels.
Oh,
But
man.
soon after Star Trek 3, I think we started watching Star Trek, the original series, because it was on syndicated every night at 6. So we would eat dinner and watch Star Trek. So I had watched the entire show. I had like a Starlog episode guide, and I was kind of disappointed when I figured out I'd seen every single one. And there
You were
wasn't
like,
any more.
Alexander when he had conquered
Yeah,
everything,
there's no more worlds to conquer. Exactly.
Yeah. Boy,
But-
Starlog really did play a role in the early days of this fandom.
Yeah,
Love
well, I
it.
mean, yeah. What later, I the fan club and communicator, but that was still, I don't know, 5 years out for me. But I was watching Star Trek, and my dad said they're gonna make a new one, and then that was Next Generation. That premiered a year later. We watched that, and then pretty soon my obsessiveness, because I started buying the, I think there's some right over here, Best of Trek. There were these. There was a fanzine, and they would collect parts into little paperbacks, and they were always at B. Dalton in my little town. So I would buy these Best of Treks, and I would read about conventions, and I was just like, well, we should go to these. So we started going to conventions, and the first one was, it was 88. I remember because I bought like a Kirk and Spock for President shirt when
Yeah.
I saw James Doohan, first convention in Minneapolis, and then I kept going to those, kept doing Star Trek. I went to college. I kind of fell off in 95 because I had no way of watching current DS9 and Voyager at that point, because I think we had a TV in my room, but I don't think we had cable, and I didn't know what Star Trek was on, and I was doing bad enough at school. But I still liked Star Trek and watched it. Would have my girlfriend watch all of Next Generation or whatever, and and then later, to get to Tex-Trek, the pandemic hit, and I decided I'm gonna finish watching DS9 and Voyager, the ones I didn't quite finish because I went to college. So I started with DS9. I watched DS9, Voyager. I finished Enterprise. I hadn't quite finished that one. And I rewatched everything else I hadn't seen. And then somewhere along the lines, I mentioned something on Facebook, and someone's like, oh, you got to check out this Facebook group, which was Feminist Moogie Corps. And
Oh, yeah.
someone posted a Jessie Gender video. It was about politics in Star Trek, and she had this, like, Marxist cola. It was, like, bright red. It was very funny. And so I started watching her stuff, She had lives. Those were really fun. I didn't know that was a thing. And then in the chat, I do see Tex-Trek come up in the chat. Jesse shouts out Tex-Trek. He's like, "Oh, their channel's really great." So I look it up, and then, yeah, I might have done Starfleet Sohail first, but I had seen and then got back because you guys were sort of interconnected as far as. And then I started, yes, my life in chats began, and I renounced my physical existence and became chat-based. And I think that takes us up to the present.
That's a pretty good story. It's got a lot of dramatic twists and turns. There's a point where you almost could have missed us, and then you kind of came back. And it's actually like how I think a lot of people find Trek. You wander in through. You catch a random movie or something like that, and that's the start of it, or you see an episode of The Friends, and it's always a little bit of a circuitous path. It would be pretty rare for to be the person there from day one. Although I know our audience does include day one Trek people too. But yeah, that's pretty cool.
But it's hard to go back to that if you weren't.
Right.
Secret time travel is secret, so.
And Jill47 in our live audience is saying that Joel left out the part where he is one of the funniest chatters of all time. But
I owe that all to Mystery Science Theater 3000, one of my other obsessions. And the fact that I used to watch Comedy Central for 30 hours a day.
You'll eventually pick up some wit if you just watch enough of it.
hey, all the people
it used
who
to
are
just be stand-up that did it cut up and to put it into different shows.
all the big comedians now, they were all doing like stand-up comedy 25 years ago on Comedy Central.
Yeah. And they had all those A&E like comedy shows, the one with the brick wall that you always see in clips. Hello, Sohail in the chat. And they would cut them up into themes. I remember Short Attention Span Theater would be like that, so they were just like... Yes, so you learn a lot, and that's why I think almost all comedy now I don't think is very funny, because it's all predictable to me, so I studied it too hard. But Star Trek's still great, even though I studied that hard. But
it is fun. It is fun just to have like... Well, go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, I was just saying, at some point Joel needs to be in on like a Tex-Trek all comedy episodes focus.
That was one thing I did love when I was very little. I remember absolutely loving a piece of the action because it was so funny. Fizbin alone, I think, had a huge impact because I just thought it was the funny. I love magic and card tricks too, I think. So that was just the funniest thing in the world to me, Fizbin. It still holds up too.
Ridiculous bit. The timing is really good on it. Those writers knew how to and the actors knew how to deliver those lines.
That was Gene Kuhn, right? Putting in the comedy in those episodes.
Yeah, because Roddenberry was not. Roddenberry didn't
want
want the comedy. He didn't want Trouble with Tribbles. He didn't want a piece of the action. But then when those episodes got popular, Gene and Majel had no problem with Lincoln Enterprises selling Tribbles as merchandise, as like unofficial Star Trek merchandise. So
the variety helps syndication too, for sure. Having comedy in there.
Yeah,
I think that helps syndication a lot.
It's funny, that was something like I remember us talking about one of the very first podcasts that we did, Dave and I, was talking about, we both were fans of how the original series handled comedy. And one of the things that would come up a lot in those early podcast episodes, Dave would frequently mention how Deep Space Nine was the Trek he was least familiar with. And I would tell him, well, if you think TOS did comedy really well, I think you would like the way that they handle it in DS9. And so many of the early podcast episodes that we did, I think was a lot of it was me trying to sell Deep Space Nine to Dave, which I think it worked. It might have taken 300 podcast episodes, but I think he agrees with me now.
I think 200. You were there by 200, I think.
Yeah.
I know I was pretty kind of skeptical of that the gritty, Babylon 5 alternative one was gonna win me over that well. I was like, if I didn't really vibe with some of the humor on TNG, how am I gonna get on board DS9? But yeah, man, the writers on that one, and also I think the influence of TOS on those writers, they really came through.
So
And they were
Magnificent
allowed to love it,
Ferengi,
unlike Next
so many
Generation.
others.
Yeah.
What's that?
They were allowed to love it out loud,
Right.
unlike Next Generation, which is like, no, you don't want to mention that. Yeah.
yeah, they couldn't
Yeah.
even have like an Endorian. They had to like, no, we're gonna invent Booleans because we're embarrassed
Or
of
when you do,
antennae.
you do show an Andorian, it's the wrong color, and it's on the
Yeah.
holodeck. And
But just to go back to where it all began, Tex-Trek #1 was recorded September 8th, 2016, on the 50th anniversary of the franchise. And it was something that I felt like I really wanted to do, mainly because like there wasn't like Star Trek content out there that like I wanted to listen to or watch. I would spend a lot of time back then like at work and either watching or listening to YouTube videos I would play on my phone, or listening to podcasts. And I was really into the other Star franchise and Game of Thrones and Marvel and DC Comics, and there was so much content for that. And then like, oh, they have announced a new Star Trek show in production. Why isn't there like the same level of content, for Star Trek? There's plenty to talk about. It has a rich history, a rich lore. There's new things happening. So, there's plenty of old material to talk about. And I thought that it was just like the time was right. So I reached out to Dave, who was just, a guy I knew from the comic book store that I shopped at. And I don't honestly, like, I don't have many Trekkie friends that like most people I know who are into Star Trek I met like after starting a Star Trek podcast. So yeah. I kind of like, I didn't have like, it was slim pickings as far as like, I didn't know many people who were into Star Trek. But I'm glad that I turned to Dave, because just the
Fathery, I manage a comic shop, so all of my friends are into Star Trek, or at least I feel like there's a lot of them have like at least some foot in the Trekkie universe. But Amy in the audience was asking the date of when we first discussed it. Do you happen to remember, Fathery, when you probably came by the store, or maybe you messaged me?
I believe it was a Facebook message, but I had the idea. I was actually in the store, and I don't remember why, but there was a group of us there, like something y'all had some event or something, and you had the Star Trek Discovery teaser trailer that just showed the ship leaving, and like the Discovery ship looked way different from how it looked on the show, but it was like leaving like the asteroid that it was built in, I guess, whatever, like their conceptual idea. Like none of this stuff actually showed up in the show, but it was like the CGI ship taking off out of like the hangar deck. And you and Randy had that like on the screen, and y'all were talking about, and they were like, oh, like, they're talking about like the Brian Fuller's new Star Trek show, and they might go like super diverse with like a woman of color lead, and that sounds like kind of exciting. And I was like, I know this dude has like him and his brother have like a big fondness of Star Trek, and like grew up like big Star Trek fans, and he would probably come at like a lot of things with like a different perspective than me, because he was around watching Star Trek in the 70s, so he would kind of like know like that culture that was like before my time. But I probably am like so like up close to all the stuff going on now that I would probably be able to like inform him of a lot of stuff, and it just seemed like we would like balance out really well, and it worked out. I mean, I think like 300 episodes later, I think that's a lot. That's a shitload of validation, honestly. So
yeah, it's funny because I don't remember the exact that exact like an initial conversation, or there's certainly no details of it. That's not surprising. My memory sucks. But, I do remember thinking, oh, all right, once Father had mentioned this idea about doing a podcast, I was like, well, this is clearly a bit more than a one-time thing, I've done a lot of podcasts before, actually, though they tend to be kind of on the casual side. I'd done a comic podcast for a few years with some friends, guest spots on a few others. We do a store podcast that we've been doing for... I don't know how long now, but just a weekly sort of informative store podcast.
like a decade at this point.
It's like over
more
a
than
decade,
300 for that, probably.
Yeah, I think it is. And so I was like, well, I am not a driving force behind these things, but I feel like I can be a good contributor. and I was like, I also kind of would like to learn more about Star Trek, and I knew that, and Fathery did have that knowledge base that was deeper than mine, and so I was like ready to give it a shot, ready to take a chance on doing something that I knew was a bit of a commitment. Although I wouldn't have guessed how long.
You didn't 300. He didn't put that in a contract.
Well, yeah. In the back
After
of my head,
300, you'll be released.
I probably thought, well, we'll do this for about 9 months.
20, yeah,
and it'll
20
fall
episodes.
apart. It'll fall apart, and
they do. Yeah, in general.
These things happen, but it didn't fall apart.
Yeah, this is the people watching on YouTube. This is an image of our very first show, Tex-Trek number 1, recorded September 8th, 2016.
This is a rare shot before the hat symbiote landed on Fathery and became part of him. So
I got this hat from the Alamo gift shop a couple
on
years
Battle World, right? It was on Battle World. Yes.
It was shortly after we started the podcast. We were a couple years into it. So I think by the time Discovery, maybe 1 year. I think by the time we were talking Discovery, I had the hat.
It didn't take long because okay, we didn't get to this part yet, but I've watched every episode of Tex-Trek. We'll get to the story about that probably later.
Yeah.
But yes, at the beginning, the hat symbiote is not there, so it's a trip to see.
So
in addition to the setup being, at a table, both of you are actually in one location,
right?
Not hidden away in the undisclosed location.
Yeah, we're real people. That is
there's no fridges. There's no appliances at all.
Lenovo Android tablet that I'm using for my notes for some reason.
I almost never try to grow a beard because it does not come in good for me. I was just for a few months doing it at the time. That was actually part of a very one-off little cosplay thing I was doing.
It was for a Halloween costume.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And as I look at it now, I'm not a fan, but it is a slice of my history, and so there it is, immortalized. Thanks.
Well, you look improved now, so that's always good. Yeah.
Thank you. Somebody said I look younger in there, and that might be a little color in the hair, but I'll take it.
Do you want to say what you were growing the beard for? I think it looks fine, by the way. I thought it looked fine back then, but
Jill says she prefers it, but Jill, you're just seeing this is like a still shot. Like up close, I feel like you'd be like, oh, it's that partial Wolfman transformation. This was for the TV show Gotham, which was kind of a guilty pleasure show I was watching, and I was like, oh, you know what? I think I could pull off the Detective Harvey Bullock from there, the kind of gruff detective dude, because it was really he's just a trench coat and hat kind of guy.
Yeah, it's an easy cosplay.
A perpetual 5 o'clock shadow. There's actually, I took a photo that I, at the time, maybe I'll post it to our Discord later, that I was like, you know what? This photo actually came out pretty decent. I don't really like myself on camera, but I was like, that photo came out okay, so I'll post it later on. And imagine me beating up some Gotham criminals, and that's what I was doing it for.
We also had
sorry.
We also had Dave's brother guest when we were using the table setup. We had Matt come by. He was our first guest.
Yes. And later you took over his house so you could have some place to podcast from. So.
Yeah. I owe my brother for a lot of technical assists and Fathery for the same. My brother in many ways is a best friend as well. And so, I always like talking Trek with him. Literally last week, I'm showing him some episodes of Next Generation that he hasn't seen in a while. And I was like, oh, you need to watch these. I was just kind of in the mood. And so, Trekker's still a big part of our lives.
And people who know our friend Subcommander Tal will, they'll know who I'm talking about. But Matt reminds me a lot of the Subcommander as far as, he knows so much information on the original series. he's read a lot of like behind the scenes books, and he's a massive fountain of information for the original series. Not so much the other shows. He's mainly a fan of TOS. But I know he casually enjoys a lot of the other Star Trek, but that's like his big one is TOS.
And he was a true fan who did all of the the B. Joe Trimble stuff. What was the book called?
The Concordance.
Yeah, he had the Concordance. He had those best of Treks that you were talking about, Joel.
Yep.
He had Starlog issues, and my mom sewed a tribble, multiple tribbles for us when we were young. And he had some toys. Trek has always been kind of part of our life, even though it became more casual for him and a little bit more intense for me.
Yeah, Best of Trek. That's where 10-year-olds can learn about slash fiction. It was great. It's good for what ails you. Expand your mind.
But
it's as big a part of Trek as anything else.
It is.
I had no idea what we were doing. Like we were first getting started. I was like, I guess I'm just gonna record some stuff. Like I was like, are we gonna like be more on YouTube, or gonna be more of like a podcast, or like I didn't know that the streaming thing was gonna become big. So it was kind of I like how things worked themselves out, but the first couple of years, just like trying to figure out kind of our format and like our recording location, and that was I also like I moved at some point in there, so we were recording together from my old place, then I moved into the new place, and we had the upstairs green room experience where we were like, no one could tell I think on camera, but like we were like really cramped up against like the between the green screen and the camera, like especially if we had a guest in there.
Fathery, the secret preparation that nobody is aware of that I feel like we spent the most time on was smoothing out that green screen behind you that was pulled awkwardly between like two stands, and like we were always trying to get that right.
Yeah, we were always trying to get the wrinkles out.
Yeah.
I feel like just hours and hours were spent on that, but
that's why I've heard of so many people just painting the back wall where they do it, because getting things flat with its fabric. Oh yeah,
we have to travel back in time and tell our past selves that.
The YouTube audience, they'll see like some pictures of us talking about Discovery when we were getting like the first trailers and wondering what the hell that show was going to be like. There was so much speculation. It was really like wild times, because we would get so little information, and then there would just be like months to be like people would just like go crazy and just try to there was so much misinformation too. That was weird. That was when we were dealing with a lot of the clickbait misinformation. It was a strange era of like fake news was really trendy, like in politics as well as in media, like 2016, 2017.
Well, yeah, 2016 was a fascinating year because I felt like it was sandwiched between the wild optimism of Pokemon Go and the bleakest election of my lifetime. So it was an interesting time. Maybe that's when Trek's hope is most needed, though.
Yes, when it's most needed, Trek arises.
So
shows us a beacon to keep us going in the dark times.
Joel, as someone who you came in when you started following Tex-Trek, were we?
I think
doing
2021, sometime in 2021, late 2021.
We had already figured out kind of our current format.
Yes,
as
you
far
were
as
pretty settled into.
So when you went back and you saw like this older stuff, when you went back and you watched all of our archived videos on YouTube and all of the old podcast episodes, what did you think when you saw some of the older stuff?
Well, I wasn't surprised because, I mean, how else do you figure this stuff out besides doing it? There's no other way. Because it's not like, I would like to buy one, fully rendered Tex-Trek format, please. Well, maybe you could, but that'd be really expensive. So, having heard other things all around, various, amateur or sort of radio shows, or I've always was so impressed when I listened to Off the Hook from the guys from 2600 magazine. Those guys sound so amazing when they do their show. They don't say ever because they've been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I don't, they have day jobs. They run a magazine. They do all this stuff. But their little secondary thing on New York public radio, they sound like they've been, professional broadcasters because they've been doing it they just have the practice. And it's the same thing. Everything starts awkward, especially filming, because, it's not like you have, like, a 4K camera in 2016 or and all this stuff. And, yeah, practice makes perfect. And, and the pandemic definitely improved the look of the show because instead of being crammed into 4 people in a shot, and then the audio was good, actually. So that's impressive. Because 2 people, you can get a mic close to a mic, but 4, yeah, that was impressive. You got the audio right.
So see, Dave, all those hours I spent like worrying about like the microphone and people being close to the mic and all of that, and where we were sitting, like it all paid off. As Joel is like, y'all sound surprisingly good.
Yeah, because that's one thing. Because I have heard other podcasts where the audio goes in and out, and it's really hard to keep your attention there.
And Father has always put in a lot of work, even when maybe our equipment wasn't up to the task. You always did a lot of behind-the-scenes work, Fathery, in getting us up to speed on that as best we could. I can say those were the cramped locations in the living room, though, were difficult. And the pandemic, the thing for me that I really liked about it when we started doing it, because, I thought I would it would lack the immediacy of just at least having a person right next to me. Was I liked getting the audience in on the chat. It made it feel more, I don't know, not organic, but like it felt like more of some sort of a group effort. Felt like more interactive for sure.
Right.
And I like to pull comments from the audience. We had a very witty and an intelligent audience, and they were like a friendly bunch that didn't like chew each other up in the comments, which was really nice. And and so I was like, oh, this is super cool. And then we can occasionally like draft off of one of those comments in the show itself. So it gave it a sort of spontaneity that I appreciated. So
yeah, I guess I never realized that, Dave, but I guess like you never had the interactive side. Like I was the only one you interacted with, it was
right.
When we were recording Discovery reviews for season 1 and season 2 in my living room, when you're just like sitting with me on the couch in front of the camera and microphone, you're not getting any of the audience interaction, and that would all be stuff that I would see later after it was posted. So switching to the live format, it's odd that like when we were what do you call it, sheltering during COVID, what do you social distancing,
sheltering in place,
when we were all sheltering in place, social distancing, you actually became closer to our audience.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing, you've always been the sort of again the standard bearer, Fathery, on that the sort of interactivity with them, but I don't know if that's just I have certain social anxieties that pop up, but or if it's just like one of those pop culture is also my day job, and occasionally I just need to breathe and not be in pop culture. So, but I love our audience. So like, yeah, that was a big oomph for me. It gave me some of that energy when in a pandemic times when there was, a lot of energy being drained from us, I guess.
Yeah, the live thing is a big deal. I think it's a big deal because I'm only here because one time I made Jessie Gender laugh, and she read my comment, and then that basically is why I'm here.
Boom. Yeah.
No, you've made a lot of us laugh.
I try.
Yeah, but it didn't matter until Jessie Gender laughed, Father.
Well, that was the first person I was watching live.
That's
she's wonderful.
Yeah, and she's been an awesome help to our show. She's
she's been on
guested
multiple times
on Tex-Trek. She allowed Joel to discover us, which I love being friends with Joel and getting to hang out with him and do Star Trek stuff with him. So I got to thank Jessie for that next time I see her.
In the audience, Sohail is asking who's on the screen right now. That is Anna, one of my coworkers from the store, Rogues Gallery, that I manage. Anna was on for at least a few episodes with his
She
father.
was good. I liked her.
More than a few.
Yeah, so this was back in Discovery Season 2, so that would make it 2019, so 5 years ago.
Yep. Anna has since moved to another state, but I do still keep in touch with her, and she's great.
Yeah,
much love.
Also, in this shirt, in this picture, I'm in a shirt that probably would not be official Star Trek merchandise anymore. It has
Probably
a picture of the tardigrade from Star Trek Discovery. It says "Ripper is my spirit animal," but I think that would probably be considered inappropriate these days.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty
just-
much gone by the wayside. That was
Just
very
within,
trendy for a while, that spirit animal thing, but
Yeah, and I don't wear this shirt anymore, but I like that just within 5 years, 5 years ago, we can look back and be like, oh yeah, we know better than
grew.
that now. So,
We grew. Yeah.
Apologies for wearing that, but I did like representing Ripper when there wasn't a ton of
tardigrades.
Star
yeah,
Trek
but-
Discovery merch out when it was still pretty new. But
I have Moopsy now, but he's
in
not
a
my spirit
moment-
animal. He's just gonna drink my bones. So
in a moment, I'm going to bring Taylor out to talk about some of
yeah,
the
she's in her
Star Trek
spoiler-free bubble,
experiences.
so she doesn't get spoiled by anything we say about
So
shows
I will
she
let her.
hasn't seen.
I'll let her know in about 10 minutes. Bring her.
I hope
out,
she has
but,
air. That'd be very unfortunate, but
Joel, do you have any other questions about like some of the other content that we were doing in the early days, or some of the some of the like away mission things I would
Yes.
do? Like,
I'm very glad those mirror universe versions of yourself have been banished and haven't shown up for a long time. Just sort of like Discovery. And it's like, oh, it's further away now. They don't bother us now.
they could
Because,
always return.
those guys were serious, They'd kill you and agonize you and
Well,
wrap you in
that-
plastic. And
People may not have seen that.
Oh, they see it
This
in the
was the-
video if they
Yes,
watch on
it's in the
YouTube.
intro.
It's in
It's
the
in every
opening
episode.
credits.
But yes, this was probably the biggest ask you've ever had of me, Fathery. Since I don't, it's one thing to be a talking head on camera. I can pull that off. But to put on these sketches, in which we were forced by our Mirror Universe doubles, I believe, to review all things Mirror Universe. We reviewed every Mirror Universe episode
That's
there
right.
was, and ultimately escaped in a finale sketch from the agony booth of our spirit selves, of our mirror selves, to fight.
they're going to
them.
agonize your spirit animal. So, yeah, oh my gosh.
We had Fathery did some old school FX work so that we could have the scene where we square off against our mirror selves and fought them. And there is a certain charm to the old schooledness of it. That's Dave with like a goatee, and I forget what all else we had.
But ironically, not the goatee in the picture earlier that we were talking about.
Right, different
A
one.
different evil Dave. But
More of a Halloween evil Dave. But yes, that was I know that it was both fun to do and ridiculous. Oh yes,
There we go.
Here's
Behind the
behind the scenes.
scenes.
This is the movie magic. But if you're watching on YouTube, there's actually a picture on screen of me and Dave in the agony booth in front of the green screen. So sorry
Everyone
to,
join
sorry
the
to
Patreon,
demystify the
and if we get
illusion.
enough, maybe we'll have a Blu-ray with extras like these.
You know, that agony booth looks suspiciously like an upended table with dowels taped to the legs and saran wrap wrapped around the dowels to form the translucent.
As long as
sides
it causes agony, it's an agony booth. Why spend extra money?
Yeah, it was working. It was working.
But we also I interviewed J.K. Woodward on the Star
Yeah.
Trek cruise,
Very
which
good
was part
episode.
of that Mirror Universe series that we did, and that was kind of our first celebrity. I don't know, like
Or
someone who
guest.
like worked on Star Trek
I
guests.
think so.
So that was
Yeah,
cool.
I think so. And what a great interview he is. He's so
Oh,
great.
Dave and I are both like fans of comic books. Like we're not just saying this because like he works on Star Trek. Like we both like really like his work. Like
He's
Dave
really good.
Dave's more of an expert on comic book art than I am, and but yeah, like Dave agrees with me that J.K. Woodward is a great comic artist, right?
Yeah, he's one of the few who can really pull off a photorealistic style without it looking like static and boring. And
See the X-Men TNG crossover for harder ones.
Yeah, yes, exactly. But yeah, he did the Doctor Who Trek crossover. He's really good with all that stuff. He designed mirror universe versions of characters well before we would see mirror universe versions of them in any official like filmed media anyway. So yeah, that was a super awesome get, Fathery.
Yeah, what was so cool was when I was on that cruise in January of 2019, they actually showed the mid-season premiere of Discovery Season 1. It was that first Mirror Universe episode directed by Jonathan Frakes when Burnham has like that cool elevator knife fight. And there is no way to watch that on the cruise. They've corrected that every Star Trek cruise since then. They always premiere the new episodes on there. But a friend of mine on the cruise went on shore that day, got a copy of that episode, downloaded on her laptop, brought it back on board the ship, was nice enough to share it with me, and then I showed that episode, that of all the cool Mirror Universe stuff, I showed that to Star Trek comic book artist J.K. Woodward, so he got to see that episode, and I got to see like and we were talking about like, oh, that was cool how like they designed like that armor, and we were talking Mirror Universe design and talking about like what the Discovery people did versus what he was doing in the comic, and it was just a really fun experience for me, and I was like, wow, like if I wasn't like so involved with Star Trek and like doing this podcast and stuff like this, like I would be missing out. This is like the most fun I've ever had in my life. So 300 episodes into it, I'm like, I have no plans to stop anytime soon. It's a 47-year mission, I say. Like I want to do this until first contact day. Yeah, I want to make it to Bozeman. I want to be there when the Vulcans show up. So my plan is to retire from the podcast then. It will be 47 years after Dave and I started in 2016 on the 50th anniversary.
That's funny you say that because 300 episodes in a modern streaming show is 47 seasons. So
there you go.
Fathery, I'm trying to think like just off the top of my head, like we also would go on to have. We had Jesse Gender on. We had the Star Trek Communist on. We had the head of IDW's comic division.
Oh, yeah, Heather Antos. Yeah, editor Heather Antos.
We've had Trek writers on.
Yes.
Some of the fans made good, whose names are going to escape me.
Yeah, but we had David Mack. We had some freelancers on DS9, like Ethan H. Koch and Jack Trevino and Tony Mayberry.
And a minor creative talent named Ira Stephen Bear.
Yeah, some people have heard of that dude.
Who knows a lot about the Alamo? It was I was unexpected.
So it all comes full
Alamo
circle.
Talk, yeah. I was still a heartbreaker that I was not able to make that one for technical difficulties. But having him sort of bust my balls on the air about not making it,
that was
made
funny.
it worth it. So I'm okay with it. I've learned to live with it.
You know what's funny is I just saw Ira Stephen Bear at Star Trek Las Vegas, but it was in the vendor's room, and he walked by me, and I thought to myself, man, that Ira Stephen Bear cosplayer did like a really good, like that totally looks like a shirt he would wear, and they had like the beard, the right color purple, and like the sunglasses. I was like, man, that dude nailed it. And then I walked over to our friend Larry Nemechek, Dr. Trek himself, and he was like, oh yeah, I was just talking to Ira. But
he's a character, man.
I was not there at that part. I missed that. But
I think Taylor is probably about ready to come on. So,
I hope she has air. Check on her.
Yeah, we'll check on her. We'll let her know.
Is she in the agony booth? I hope she's not in that agony booth. That'd be
I
terrible.
should also mention though before that another one of my favorite things to come out of doing 300 episodes of this podcast was just the friends that I've made along the way, including one of my best friends ever, our friend Sohel, aka Starfleet Sohel, formerly known as Starfleet Boy. This is
I
one of
still have your shirt, Sohail. I got to mail that to you. Sorry.
some of the
I'll do
early
that
collaboration, some of the early collaboration with him. If you're watching on YouTube, here's a screenshot of one of the streams we were doing. We did some reaction streams to short treks back in between seasons 1 and 2 of Discovery, where they would drop a 15-minute short trek on Thursdays, and I was like, I don't know if it's worth like Dave like driving over to my house to record like a whole podcast for a little 15-minute short. Especially after I saw a few of them. I like some of the short treks, but yeah, here was me and Sohel and PJ reacting to. I believe this was actually the first one with or no, this was the brightest star. I don't know which one it was. Doesn't matter.
I don't remember the
There's
order
young
anymore.
Sohel. I think he's Sohel. Are you still in Seattle or are you in Miami here? I think this might still be Seattle for you.
He's still a carbon-based life form. He's not totally virtual like he is earlier today.
Sohail has like a kind of boundless sort of energy and optimism.
Yes, he does.
He brings it, and he had been doing. I mean, yeah, like you said, he had his own show, and he's been.
I have not watched all
professional
his. He is a lot.
Yeah,
I watched
Sohel's
all the
covered,
TOS ones, but
He did all of TOS, all of TAS, all of TNG, working on DS9.
I've watched
Okay,
like
so-
5 TNGs. I'm really
So
behind. on
Sohel
those.
confirms that is Miami, but
Okay.
and here's if people are wondering like how crowded it got when we were doing the living room. So here's 4 of us packed in there. This is for one of the movies. I think this was Star Trek 5. We're talking about Star Trek 5 here.
I look like I'm trying to keep from laughing, and it's quite possible I was.
Probably.
I imagine you're on like the worst bar stools in the world or something. You all look like perched,
Yeah.
moving forward, and your back's hurt, and you're like, "Oh my god!"
I got these chairs really cheap. They came from a casino. They were slot machine chairs, I guess.
Oh,
but
were they all dirty? Gross.
I don't think they're that dirty. I got one of them right next to me here. I don't know.
Okay.
I tap it and no like dust cloud pops up. So I think it's.
I'm not
I
worried
think
about
it's clean.
dust. I just heard stories about why they get rid of chairs at casinos.
I'm not going to ask. But you know what? As I recall, Father, those weren't like wildly uncomfortable. But anytime
That's
I
good.
sit for like an hour or two, it doesn't matter what I'm on; it becomes uncomfortable. So yeah, that was those were sometimes a little bit. There was a physical exertion at times, and I think we've all recorded at some time or another when we're sick and stuff like that. I even remember a podcast, Fathery, where you had to kind of be off camera, and we
Right.
we
You
guest
and
hosted without you.
you and Brian did the whole show without me, but I was standing by.
You were choreographing from off to the side like Bob Fosse.
Semaphore.
and honestly, you had done such good preparation that Fathery, for people who don't know, makes really excellent outlines. For every show, he's got a nice broad structural outline, and so that was immensely helpful for that time. But yeah, there have been some exciting moments.
Well, I teased earlier that we were going to bring out my partner Taylor, who has watched for the first time all of the Star Trek from 1990s. From 1966 to 1996. She's watched the first 30 years of the
yeah.
franchise. But here she is, Miss Taylor. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing really
Hello.
good.
Nice to officially meet you.
Yes.
Y'all have interacted in the Tex-Trek Discord server,
Yeah.
but as far as I know, this is y'all's first face-to-face conversation.
I believe so, yeah.
Excellent.
Taylor, you and me and Dave actually recorded some content about a week ago with our friends Aaron Harvey and Rachel and Starfleet Sohel. And we asked you all kinds of questions about the Star Trek that you've watched, the original series, the animated series, TNG, even you've dabbled with DS9 and Voyager. Haven't finished those yet, but you've watched a lot of movies. You've seen the first 8 movies now. We just watched Star Trek First Contact a couple of days ago. So there's so much there. We were going to use that tonight as part of Tex-Trek 300, but we decided it was so much that that's just going to be its own future podcast episode. And the fun part is we're going to get to do that again after you watch the second half of Star Trek that we're on now. But
Yes.
But just to tease that for people a little bit, some of the things we talk about in there, the original series, the animated series, you find out how those older shows hold up for you. You've seen the Tuvix episode of Voyager, so I don't want to say it now. I don't want to say where you land on did Janeway do the right thing or not, but we cover that in that conversation with you. We find out who your favorite TOS characters are, who you love from the Next Generation, who you don't like from the Next Generation, how you feel about Dr. Pulaski. I do want to ask you now something that we can talk about, though. We just saw Star Trek First Contact. That's something that's not going to be in there because we hadn't seen it when we recorded that. But we did ask you to make some predictions for Star Trek First Contact, and then you got to see it. But I'm just if you want to just let people know, what did you think of Star Trek First Contact?
I really loved it. It was my favorite one since Wrath of Khan. So I wasn't expecting the Borg to come back at all. I'm very
You
not
don't like
a
the
fan
Borg.
of the Borg.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
like the Borg. I posted on Twitter. I said she does not like Borg episodes, but I think this movie might change her mind on the Borg, or at least on
Yeah.
like Borg stories. So
I think they finally figured it out.
The fuller video of us talking to Taylor about her early Trek experiences, we dive a little bit into where the disconnect was with the Borg and stuff like that, and I think it's pretty interesting. Even though you're also a little worried that people were going to hate you, but that's not our Trek community, and you weren't like just you weren't unreasonably. I hate all the Borg. So yeah. What won you over? I'm surprised.
I think it was a little scarier. Like I had like a little bit more of like a dauntingness to it, and I think they handled like Picard's reactions with the Borg way more in depth and like kind of psychoanalysis of kind of PTSD. So there's a lot of like the trauma and like the connection with the Borg that I think they didn't get to explain more in the episodes. So I really liked that in the movies, and it made it a little more scary. So I think that was good.
The movies kind of zero in on that in like a very focused way, and the writers tend to have good writing on those. So that's awesome. What about the rest of the movie?
I think there could have been more Troy and Dr. Crusher. I think that's my really big complaint. They only had a couple of, appearances, and they were really good. They acted great. They had great dialogue. I thought that was fun.
Troy gets some really good lines, but
yes,
not overall that. Yeah.
Oh, what did you think when she has like that drunk scene when Riker finds her drunk in the bar? Marina Sirtis is pretty funny in that, I think.
Yeah, I think she acted that so well. I thought the scene was really funny.
She's a really funny person in real life, and I'm excited to eventually bring you to a Star Trek convention that she's at so that you can experience that. You and I are actually going to our first Star Trek convention in a few days. Unfortunately, Marina will not be there, but a ton of other Star Trek actors will be. But
cool.
Well, that's okay.
That's going to be in...
Marina is hilarious in real life. Oh my god, she's so good.
How did you feel about Zephram Cochrane and like that sort of his crisis of confidence and all that stuff?
I thought that was very realistic and also kind of not comical, but relatable. Like if you're if you're getting all of this information and you're hearing these people talk so highly of you and you're in the situation where, maybe he doesn't have as much confidence and he kind of doesn't see himself as being a very, I don't know, meaningful character or like meaningful person for his history. So I think it was kind of cool to see him come around and like accept it. It was kind of silly, like when Geordi and Riker kind of spoiling his lifetime.
Yeah,
they're giving him like the inspirational quotes. Yeah, he's
The
gonna use.
statue. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I thought it was cool to see his character come back. I know we saw him for the first time in the original series, and he's been talked about a lot, like on TNG, and I think they even reference him on Deep Space Nine because of the warp stuff.
Or no,
So,
it was in a Voyager in
oh yes,
the greatest episode ever, Threshold, when Tom and Janeway make lizard babies, but they
Oh.
they mentioned Cochrane in that episode. But yeah, how did you feel about
Cute
Threshold?
little baby lizard. Yeah.
We can spoil that one, but
yeah, I don't know. I was really surprised by the babies at the end. It was
yeah, no
very-
one sees
very
that
silly.
twist coming. I'll give the episode that. Like, no one's going to predict that ending.
Yeah, that was a surprise for sure. I didn't think that she was going to transform all the way. I thought they were going to find him completely transformed and she'd be like a half form or whatever. But then it was like, oh, we've had a full life cycle and they have babies
I've
in
been
like
having
2 days.
I've been having a lot of fun sharing your reactions to stuff when you have like strong reactions to particular episodes. I make a post about it on social media, and then like whenever we finish a movie or series, we do a short little video on that. We just did The Next Generation. We released that today. But I'm gonna go ahead and preview it now for the podcast and YouTube audience. But this is the latest hashtag Taylor's Star Trek mission video that we've released. Oh, actually, it's not going to let me show it because this video uses a unique codec that
Copyrighted.
my browser doesn't support. So it's not going to let me
no.
play it. But that's okay. It's already
Why
out.
don't you
on,
describe it in detail? Yes.
It's on YouTube and Instagram and all those TikTok.
Can you show
so,
the YouTube in a screen?
I probably can.
Because that should work.
Yeah, I can set that up if y'all ask Taylor another question about something.
Oh
You
no.
know, I have a question for you, Taylor, about First Contact.
Okay.
It had at least for me, some of my favorite music in it, and I don't think we talked about Trek music too much with you in the other video we made. Do you have any big connection, yes or no, yay or nay, to Trek's music over the years? And how do you feel about First Contact's music?
These are great questions. I occasionally do notice the music and I will try to remember to look in the credits to see who did it. I remember when we were doing TNG, there was one specific person I always really liked. And then anytime I didn't like it, it was always Dennis McCarthy. I felt so bad for that guy because then he ends up going to do DS9 and I was like, oh no. But I can't remember who Steven, do you remember the TNG?
Ron Jones. You really
Ron
like Ron
Jones.
Jones.
Yes. I liked his music a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Goldsmith has really great music.
Well,
and I loved the music in the fifth movie.
Yeah.
But it sounded so much like Disney's Mulan. And I was like, oh, this is so familiar.
So all
and
the
then
way
it's
around.
the same person. It's the same
Mulan
guy that
copy.
does Yeah. So I thought that was cool because I didn't know that
Wait.
that was the connection.
Who's the Disney princess in Star Trek V? Cybok?
No, there
I think
is
it's
a
Cybok.
it's the Romulan lady. She can be
That's
the
not
princess.
as funny. Come on, it's Cybok.
Well, Cybok is royalty. His mom is a
Was a
Vulcan
princess,
prince,
it's
so
true.
he's
He's
a
a
prince. Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
they never explain how they have princesses in Vulcan. but-
Kirk is kind of a prima donna, so
Well, there you go. It's true.
Okay. Let me see if this audio comes through. Let me know if y'all can hear this.
Okay.
Howdy. Welcome
Yeah.
back to hashtag Taylor's Star Trek Mission. Miss Taylor is watching all of Star Trek for the first time in release order. So you've just watched all 7 seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation. What do you think about it?
It was okay. I loved a lot of the characters though, like Picard, Crusher, and Data are definitely my top 3.
You didn't like the Borg episodes as much as a lot of people, but you really enjoyed the Klingon episodes.
Oh yeah, totally. Even in like season 1 or 2, Heart of Glory.
Yeah.
And that was I think one of the first episodes I really liked. Some other of my favorites, I liked Half a Life a lot. Like there was a lot of Loxana
Oh yeah,
in
yeah.
TNG.
Loxana grew on
Yeah,
you. Some of the things that you were kind of critical of early on, like Wesley Crusher,
Yeah, I thought he was kind of annoying. But of course, you know, like child actor, you gotta give him a break. He had like a lot of lines, and I think it was a real struggle in the beginning, and then they kind of dialed him back and then let him grow again. I did like him in the end. Like his turning point for me was the Traveler episode, where he kind of got humbled a little bit and was like more on the curiosity side instead of the arrogant side. We were talking the Klingon episodes. Oh, like Kalar. I loved Kalar, and then she had a horrible death. And we have Alexander, horrible parenting by Worf.
And then you have some TOS people show up.
Oh,
like
yeah,
Scotty,
Bones. Oh, Bones is like old man.
Spock.
Oh my gosh, I freaked out when Spock came on. I think you were like,
Sarek.
whoa, calm down. Oh yeah, the Sarek Picard episode, that was beautiful. Oh, I really liked Loud as a Whisper. I liked the ASL and the hard of hearing deaf representation in that. And also the disability conversation between the main character in that and Geordi, I thought was really cool.
Oh yeah.
How they are talking about
that's
it
great,
as not a disability, but something that they work for and is just part of them. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, I really liked Picard. I liked that he hung back a lot and let, you know, the away teams do their own thing. And I thought he was really wise, and I really wish that Bev and Picard got together though. That was really annoying. I hated the will they won't they with like all of the relationships in TNG. But I really thought they were gonna go strong and like end the show with Crusher and Picard, which kind of do with that future thing, but it's not official.
They get divorced in an alternate timeline and an alternate future.
Yay.
So
We got it.
the,
All right.
That's the content that we're working on hashtag Taylor's Star Trek mission. But yeah, we're doing those short videos like that. So those have been a lot of fun.
They're fun to
when
watch.
we did the interrogation session with Taylor, you know, one of the things we talked about was that, you know, you kind of went into it without serious expectations. You know, people hadn't told you, oh, you should like this series, you shouldn't like that series, this character is good, that character is bad. So you really are kind of watching a lot of this. You had always had a curiosity about Trek, and this has been a big opportunity for you to just do the ultimate dive. But yeah, I think it's pretty rare to have someone who is going in as kind of blind as you were to it. So that's cool for me to see. And that you know, could approach something like TOS, and, you know, there's a lot of people, I'm going to say about your age, who would find TOS too hokey or dated visually, you know, even though I don't think those are necessarily true. But it's, you know, there is, you know, even at the time there was some hokiness. So, but yeah, I think this is a cool project y'all are doing, Fathery. We're both wrapping up, you know, 300 episodes here, but also talking to a next generation of viewers. So that's cool.
Oh, there we go. Cool. A big part of the fun for me is getting to hear her predictions and then see like what comes true and what doesn't. One of the things that we ask you in the big interrogation, as Dave was calling it, but we ask you to make some predictions for Star Trek First Contact, and you were like, I'm guessing they're going to have to get Worf from Deep Space Nine somehow, and I don't know, maybe time travel. Are they going to go to 1997? So not exactly 97, and it's not exactly like they don't go to Deep Space Nine to get Worf. Worf kind of comes to them, but you know, it's like it's just fun seeing your mind work and just seeing you like as you're watching Star Trek, just like predict where it'll go next and the things you get right and the things you don't get right. It's something that Dave and I was doing when we were watching Deep Space Nine. I was watching it for the 47th time, and he was watching it for the first time. We bring up Anobran Tain, and Dave, I'm not trying to embarrass you. You're the one who brought it up, so this is all your fault. But
have y'all watched that? Is this spoiler okay territory?
Yeah, Taylor, we have just seen on Deep Space Nine. The last thing we watched was the two-parter with the Dominion prison, and Garrick and Anobran Tain, and then the basically like Gold Dukat going off to join the Dominion and bring Cardassia into the Dominion. And we got like all the backstory with Anobran Tain being revealed as Garrick's father and that stuff. So yep. That's where that was going.
But yes, which I mistakenly at the time. Although honestly, I still think that if you didn't know and were to be watching it, that
I
my
agree.
surmise that an Obrentaine was his ex-lover for the queer-coded Garrick. That makes sense to most of what they were saying about him until it was revealed.
If you watch season 3 thinking that is going to be the outcome, it makes absolute sense in everything we get in those season 3 episodes.
And I think I had always heard that, Garrick is kind of queer-coded, but they never really get around to just kind of outing him. And I was like, oh, when I saw that, I was like, look, they're actually, they did more of it than people told me. And so I thought that's what was happening.
Yeah, Dave was like really trying to defend it. He was like, oh, that was like such like a brave choice. And I was like, I don't know if that's what they were doing. Dave was like, how could you deny it? And then I was like, some of the stuff revealed. I was like trying hard not to like spoil it. I didn't want to be like, they're father and son, asshole. Like,
I believe I was
You did a good job.
Sherlock Holmes it from from the reactions of you in the audience at the time. I was like, I think I might know what actually is happening here. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
That's live TV for you.
oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Starfleet Sohel,
Oh,
for the very kind gift of the $50 super chat. Sohel says, congratulations on 300 episodes. I have to leave, but I'll come back and watch the rest on replay. And cheers, and here's the 300 more. Thank you, Sohel. And I should also say that Sohel was a big part of our roundtable with Taylor. He had to back out for allergy issues.
Yeah.
He's been struggling with some allergies, but I hope that he is feeling better soon.
Yeah, if
And-
people want a little Sohail fix, though, he is there for the interrogation.
Yeah,
At least
he is on
a
there.
portion of
So,
it.
He's got the bright light shining right on Taylor as he stands.
but
Where were you
Taylor,
when you first watched this episode?
you and I?
Four lights.
You and I are going to your first Star Trek convention in a few days in Nashville, Tennessee. So I'm very excited to be there. And if anyone is going to be at the Nashville convention, you should definitely say hi to us. But I don't know. Do you have any convention predictions or?
Oh no, I'm just gonna
Okay.
ride it and have fun, and I don't want to have any expectations because I just want to see what happens. And
No expectations and no sleep. That's what you're on.
yeah,
Honestly,
Yeah.
I think you will probably find even just the cosplay watching will probably be a lot of fun, and then everything else you can just see what grabs you.
that's definitely what I'm most excited about. I do have some fears about experiencing spoilers at the con because Steven and I have been very good at like keeping spoilers out of the conversation. He always is like, I don't know, proofread.
Dave knows I can be like overprotective of like
Yeah.
sheltering people from
Well,
spoilers.
there's other franchises people will dress up as. So anything you don't know of is obviously from Doctor Who. So
Yeah, that's right. And by the way, Fathery, I wouldn't describe you as overprotective. I think you are reasonably protective. It's probably a level a little bit beyond which I am able to do, but I think it's reasonable, and I like that Taylor has honestly has embraced it, and that she's also worked so hard to kind of stay away from other media and things about it. I think that's a cool way to go at Trek. Again, it's kind of. It emphasizes that you're just taking exactly the content that's right in front of you and not anything that you're told you should or shouldn't like.
Yeah, I like to go in to have my own opinion before I get swayed into a certain direction.
Yeah, and
Or
I'm
Fathery
cautious.
corrupts you
but-
with his wrong opinions.
I'm always cautious, like before, like we're watching like an episode, like I really dislike. I don't want to color her opinion of it, and sometimes she enjoys things that like I didn't like as much, and I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I've been too harsh on that episode. Maybe it does have like some
yeah, because
better
we have
traits.
what 30 years. We watched it, and then 30 years of fan opinion too. So like, do we remember how we watched it at first? Maybe, but
I should say, Taylor, before you leave us for the night, I should mention to people that you got to a big Texas milestone in Star Trek. One of the few Texas characters in Star Trek with Riley Frazier on Star Trek Voyager. So, what did you think of the depiction of if people remember the ex-Borg who Chakotay hooks up with in the episode Unity? And has like telepathic hive mind like Borg sex where they can feel each other's sensation. Actually, kind of a neat sci-fi idea. But that woman, what did you think about her? Or, like, what do you what characteristics do you remember about her other than her Borgness?
And that she likes blue bonnets and barbecue because she's from Texas. I mean, I thought she was a sweet character, but it was definitely heavy on the stereotype, which was funny.
Must be like people who get stereotyped a lot. It's like, oh, this must be what like that. This is like a small harmless sampling of what that must be like. It's
So she was deep in the heart of the collective. All right.
Yeah, they missed out on having boots and a cowboy hat, though. I'm sure they were itching to put that in there.
But I'm having a lot of fun watching Star Trek with you, and I'm looking forward to watching this other half, the next 3 decades worth of Star Trek that we're gonna try to cram into like 3 months and finish by the end of the year. We're trying to do the entire franchise in 2024, the year where a lot of I don't want to spoil the things, but like she already knows about the Bell riots, she already knows about Irish reunification. Like 2024 is a hop-in year for Star Trek, so and it's never gonna come again. So. We're making the most of it.
Yeah, you can watch all of Star Trek in a year. I've done it. So.
Well, we're tracking for that. So.
Taylor, we can go ahead and let you go, and
cool.
I will see you later when we're watching Voyager in Deep Space Nine in a couple of hours.
Congrats on 300, guys.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Bye. I love you.
Love you too.
It's a very adorable moment in
the Battle of Texas Mapalai, the 300th episode.
I should say that anytime they mention like the number 47 like on screen, we always kiss. And sometimes
that's better than
sometimes
drinking.
Sometimes it can be a pain in the ass because we might be on like different sides of the room or something.
Oh god,
like,
I gotta go over
one of us
again.
has to like run to the other side of the room. Or it might be like might be a scene where like they say 47 like 5 times and like I'm getting a code 47. A code 47? What? Like, oh, we haven't had one of those since like that other code 47, or like something like that.
I feel like the entire 300th episode is justified with that revelation.
There you go.
That's great.
Because it was so awkward when you and Dave had a kiss at every 47. So
yeah,
well, you know what? I got
infinite diversity and infinite combinations.
Well, I'm just saying sometimes you weren't in the same room and you had to like keep track and then meet up and so that's what I meant.
It was weird with our mirror selves being in the mix.
Yeah. I'm glad those guys are banished.
Yeah.
Or are they? Dun dun dun.
Yeah, I always have to leave the room open, leave the door open for the possibility of.
I mean, they could still return, and who knows who else might show up from the mirror universe.
Maybe in sweeps week.
Yeah.
When you need a ratings
possible.
boost. Yeah.
I'll just put it that way. Anything's possible.
Because 300th episode, the ratings are in the bag, but 342, oh yeah, that's down.
This isn't the end. This isn't like the last appearance of Dave. The airlock is always unlocked. He can his shuttle can return at any point in time. If he ever wants to come back and talk about I don't know if there's like an episode of Strange New Worlds he wants to talk about with us, or if there's a movie in production or anything like that, or he just gets bored and just like I want something to do on Friday nights again.
When he comes back, he'll have Admiral Pips though, so it'll be like a. Yeah.
No, I'm going to be one of these. I want to be a smaller supporting character. I want to be a Jeffrey Combs.
The special guest star.
But that's a lot of roles, though. I don't know if you want that. You'll be here every week.
You need a title, though. I think you can no longer just be only Dave. You need to get a retirement promotion title. I was thinking
that's why I said Admiral.
I was thinking Commodore or Ambassador. I don't know which one he would.
Ambassador. Maybe that's better.
I kind of like Ambassador. That makes
Ambassador
it
Dave. You like Ambassador Dave more than Commodore Dave?
Yeah, because I feel like I've in my daily life in the comic shop, I'm an ambassador for comics to the public as well, and if I feel like I can be that for Star Trek in some way, I kind of like it.
There you go. You'll from henceforth be known as Ambassador Dave whenever visiting the
Coming in
starship Texas with.
Coming in like Sarek and Spock and stuff.
You're getting full diplomatic honors, and we'll have like the red shirt stand in a line and do like the little whistle thing and all of that.
Yeah, I wish I could imitate the bosun's whistle easily.
That's hard. Yeah.
We'll get a soundboard and we'll just have like a drop ready to go.
Oh, man,
Easy breezy.
That'd be so cool.
I did ask people if they had any well wishes or anything in the Discord. Stan is asking when is he placed on a torpedo for the sacrifice, and he also presented this image on Twitter and said R.I.P. Dave. This is the episode that Taylor's actually a big fan of, Half a Life, a Loxana Troy episode that we talked about in that short that I previewed to y'all earlier. But yeah, here is Timothy, the man who was sent to die when he reached the
300th
age of
episode.
60.
Yes.
So
amazing.
But also, Joanne in the Discord said, from the microwave to the witty insights, I'm going to miss all things Dave. Best wishes.
The microwave doesn't get enough love. We always talk about the fridge. Good on Joanne.
Our friend Captain Pikachu sending well wishes as well.
Nice.
Who's been on the show?
I was about to say has guested with us, and that was super fun. What were we talking about with Pikachu?
Discovery season 4.
Yeah, I was gonna say it seemed like a regular kind of episode
before going into season 5. So
that's right. Yeah, that was super fun.
Yeah, we'll have to have her back on the show again sometime. But Dave,
I hope to, I hope to in just a few weeks be able to join some of y'all for in our Patreon peoples for that watch along too. So I'm gonna jump right in and not be too far.
Yeah. Although audience, Dave might return with a new form like Murph, so be wary. I don't know what it'll be.
It might take you a while to get used to it. It might be like when the Doctor regenerates and you hate the new Doctor at first, but then you get used to them.
Like Aquatic Dave is weird. I don't know if I really like it.
I'm gonna be disappointed if you don't become like little mermaid man. I'll be upset.
Murph.
I'll try and have some kind of different visual next time I am on the screen. We'll make it happen.
You get a helmet like the Aquans that you could be in the air then.
I'm actually going to have that red visor on, or maybe the Spock helmet or whatever it is.
Or both. Combine them.
This is one of those, like, I didn't want to be leaving the podcast and already full on planning any sort of returns, but frankly, Father, I've really enjoyed our revisits to DS9 and Enterprise, and we went through every episode of TAS, and so but we did not finish Enterprise, and I definitely would like to finish Enterprise in that format. So
yes,
let's keep it.
I have missed
the radar.
those were great.
That might be something that there ain't a ton of new Trek.
Yeah, we have Lower Decks
year,
coming, and then there's gonna be some space.
But yeah, like I said earlier, there's plenty of old stuff to talk about, and I think that whatever we end up discussing, we'll have a lot of fun because we have such a great audience. It's so the interaction is a big part of our show, and yeah, we love having Joel, you were a big part of that before you were. Before you were on mic, on camera, but just like in the live audience, everyone else who shows up to chat, people who comment later, people who listen to the podcast, but you've never interacted with us. I also I really love you, but if you give us some feedback and comment or something, we can shout you out more. But thanks to you too, if you're listening, just that's great. Please consider rating and sharing.
It blew my mind at my first STLV, it was 2 years ago. Somebody recognized, I'd never been on screen, talking. Somebody recognized me from the little circle when you highlight my thing. And
from your little,
yes, because they had
avatar.
watched, they weren't just listening, because we had met some listeners too, and I was very taken aback. It's like, really? And apparently
that's super
people
cool.
pay attention.
And
wait, Amy,
go ahead.
listen. Okay, now we can go.
I think I mentioned this maybe a few weeks ago, but there was a customer in the store where we've always kept some Tex-Trek business cards on the counter. This is at my comic shop, Rogues Gallery, and the other day she came up and she was like, "Are you the Tex-Trek guy?" And she recognized me by my voice and probably my manner of speaking, the cadence and all that. Maybe I had one of my regular Dave-isms. What's the one everybody always notices in the Discord or when we're doing a watch along? Now I'm blanking on it. But yeah, she caught something about how I was talking and came over to say some very nice things about the podcast, which is always awesome.
That is awesome. And
right on. Yes, thank you, Cake. That's one of my catchphrases. I like to pull a little 70s retroism in there.
Right on.
If it's left over from the 70s or the fact that Tarantino brought back a lot of that stuff in the 90s. So
yeah, that's also kind of like an Austin-y kind of thing. Like right on, man.
We have a kind of chill Matthew McConaughey vibe.
Yeah.
So that's one of our things.
Yeah.
So we still need to. We got to do something with like the Tex-Trek mascot. Like that's something like Dave and I.
We all have to get matching tattoos someday. Come on.
Yeah, I would get a tattoo of our mascot that we've talked about creating.
And then another tattoo on the other arm of the fridge, Dave's fridge.
Now, Father, you get a 4, I'll get a 7, and we'll put our biceps
then you
together.
do the pose.
Look like badasses.
Wonder Twin powers, yeah.
Dirty badasses, yeah.
What? I don't know if I want a tattoo of a 47. Like where, like I've thought about that a lot. Like I've wanted a Star Trek tattoo.
Get a 47. Like you should get others, but like a 47 just makes all the sense for you.
But then I got to think about like, do I want it in like Roman numerals or like do I want it in like Arabic numerals, but in like a Star Trek
All of the
font?
above.
It's hard to decide what would be like the perfect 47 tattoo. But if
the giant back piece that's just Arabic numerals, and then
Elcars has a font, right?
It does.
Yeah, but it's an Impact, which is like a terrible font. So
yeah.
It's supposed to be hard to read.
Well,
ironic,
thank you so much, Joanne Robertson, who I very much hope to see in a week at Nashville. But Joanne says, happy 300th, and buy the ambassador a beverage in honor of his retirement. So, absolutely.
One of my favorites in our audience. Always love to hear from you, and hope to also honestly hear from you in a couple weeks at the watch along.
Well, Dave will be back then, so if you want to attend that, sign up for the Tex-Trek Patreon. Otherwise, we'll be back in 2 weeks with another podcast episode. We're gonna stay with a bi-weekly distribution for a couple more weeks until we get Lower Decks back in October, but then it will be weekly fun again for the rest of the year. But we got some more Trek to talk about in a couple of weeks, and we're going to have more from Taylor very soon as well. And I don't know, Dave, do you want to do the do you want to give us the classic Tex-Trek signing off catchphrase before I hit the end credits button?
Yeah, that sounds good. We used to do it together for I think for a little while. Then
before we were live, yeah. When we were recording in the room together, we would say it in unison.
All right. So this said with honestly and truly, all due sincerity to the lovely people in our audience, and to Fathery and Joel and the people who have made Tex-Trek so fun to be a part of for 300 episodes. Live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. and follow Fathery on Twitter at Tex-Trek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.